Welcome to Lesson 3 of Ditch the Diet Club. Today we're going to talk about the food spectrum. I will explain. So, have you ever heard someone say, I was so bad yesterday, or I'm being good today? And I don't mean, they committed a crime or they're going to go to a charity event. They're talking about food and their eating habits. So many times what happens is people tie morality to food choices. And that means that if they choose what they deem to be good foods, they've been good. And if they choose bad foods, they've been bad. And I'm here to tell you that there are no good and bad foods. There are plenty of good and bad people, but we cannot apply that to foods. So we're going to talk about the food spectrum, and that we can place every single food in one place on that spectrum, and every single food is there. So let's talk about this food spectrum. So on the food spectrum, we have foods ranging from highly nutritious to non-nutritious. So there's highly nutritious foods, less nutritious foods, and non-nutritious foods. So highly nutritious foods would be fruits and vegetables. Those foods give you the highest amount of nutrients for the lowest amount of calories. Nutritious foods include lean meats, dairy, nuts and seeds, eggs, beans, whole grains. Less nutritious foods would be pretty much anything that comes in a package, aside from those that are our nutritious foods. So this is most like frozen dinners. We think about boxed cereals and crackers, cookies. Most of the things you find on the inner aisles of the grocery store would fall into this category. And then we have non-nutritious foods, and these are foods that are not bad, but they don't really provide us much nutrition, and they can tend to be pretty high in calories. This would be cakes, cookies, mostly sweets, and alcohol. So let's talk about a real food example of the food spectrum. So corn would be our highly nutritious food. If we think about a more processed version of corn that's still nutritious, we can think about popcorn. Now, I don't mean movie theater butter popcorn. I'm talking about just the kernels that you can buy at the store and make yourself at home. So these would still be nutritious, but they're not in their fresh form like the fresh corn is. Next, we think about less nutritious, and that would be a canned corn. So we have a canned corn that's just whole kernel corn, but it does have some sodium added because that helps preserve it for the canning process. And then we have creamed corn. So this is not just corn, but it also has sugar added. Finally, we think about non-nutritious versions. That would be our processed cereals. So it might have corn in the name, but that doesn't quite mean it has any of the nutrients from corn. Or it might be a processed chip, cookie, or snack. This one in particular, the first ingredient is cornmeal. So it doesn't even have any real corn in it. It also doesn't have the fiber that you would get from something that's less processed, like the popcorn. So just to be clear, none of these foods are bad or good. They just fall in different places on the spectrum. So we want to choose the highly nutritious and nutritious foods more often, and the less nutritious and non-nutritious foods less often. So let's talk about another example, this time with fruit. Apple, highly nutritious food, pretty easy to determine that. A nutritious version of apple would be applesauce. This is unsweetened applesauce, so there's no sugar added and it's just apples. This is not quite as nutritious as the apple because it has been processed, so you will get a little bit more sugar per serving than an apple. You'll also get a little less fiber. If we think about a less nutritious version of apple, this might be a surprise. These are freeze-dried apple slices. So it's pure apple, but it is processed in a way that makes it easier to eat a larger portion. So again, we lose a little bit of that fiber, and we also make it easier to eat a larger amount. This is true for any other kind of fruit chip. Banana chips might be the worst offender. You're much better off eating a real banana here. This is a very concentrated source of sugar, and can also have fats and added sugars as well. Finally, we think about something that's non-nutritious, and that would be an apple pie fruit filling. Needless to say, this doesn't provide much nutrients. It's not fresh apple, and it's got a lot of added ingredients. So again, we wouldn't call this bad, we would just call it non-nutritious, and we might save it for a special occasion like the holidays. So hopefully from this week's lesson, you've gathered that we are no longer using the words good and bad to talk about foods or food choices, or ourselves. We are simply using nutritious and non-nutritious. Next week, we're going to talk about food labels and how marketing might be tricking you into spending more money on a less healthy product. I'll see you then.